In this video, I'm going to share with you how it cost my family $51,000 to move to the Dominican Republic. I'll go line by line and share every expense so that if and when you make this move, you're fully prepared. Let's dive in. What's up, everybody? My name's Jamie Gruber. I moved to the Dominican Republic with my family in 2022 after quitting my $400,000 a year corporate job a year before. Today, I'm a podcaster and I own different businesses that are related to the podcast. That's how I fund my life here. One of the things I try to do on this channel is be really real. Truly real, very real on the expenses of moving to the Dominican Republic. Not only the cost of living while here, which you can go to many videos of mine and see me talk about that, but also the cost to move here. Allow me to establish some ground rules. For anyone who wants to tell me about the typical Dominican salary not being that high, duh. Typical Dominicans that you're talking about are Spanish-speaking, low income. Tell me, do you believe they're watching me on this channel? I'll wait. Good, we're on the same page. Who I'm talking to are Dominican Americans, Dominican Europeans, Dominican Canadians who have the goal of potentially repatriating or spending a portion of their year here. And they're looking for truly actionable steps in the real life, on the ground truth of what it's like to live in today's Dominican Republic. So when I rail against this idea of $1,000 or $2,000 a month being adequate for a family of four, I'm usually fighting people that are either thinking of expenses from 10 years ago or who are not a family of four, who live here as a single person or a married couple without kids or empty nesters. We're talking about a family, 3, 4, 5, minus 4, so I speak from that perspective. And we're talking about people that make a decent living, that are seeking to live a similar style of life here in the Dominican Republic while reconnecting with their roots and giving them and their family, their kids, access to what I think many of us agree is a more healthy culture for them than right now what's happening in the United States or Canada. With all that out of the way, let's get to the meat and potatoes. How did I come up with $51,487? Let me show you. All right, so I broke this down line by line for everything that I honestly could remember. Do I have everything in here? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit more. But the dollar amounts that I included here are accurate. And I think I thought of most things. So let's start right at the top. We'll put it up on the screen with flights. One-way flights for us as a family of four were $3,000. Now, if you've watched me on other videos, I talked about the fact that we decided to do Delta first class because of two things. One, you get unlimited bags. Two, you get 70 pounds per bag in first class on Delta. When making the move for us, it made sense, and that cost us about $600 more than if we had booked coach. We picked a great day and we booked far enough in advance. So you could save a little money, find a different flight, find cheaper flights, whatever, but for us, $3,000. One way. Next, we decided to rent a limo bus to take us to the airport in Detroit when we flew down here. And then we rented another one on the way from the airport in Punta Cana to our Airbnb, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, why did we rent a bus? Two reasons. One, we weren't fitting 10 70-pound bags in the back of an Uber. It just wasn't happening. Two, this was a big move. I wanted it to be a celebration for my family. I was willing to spend a little bit of extra money to make it a first-class move. So we got some pretty cool transportation to and from the airport on both sides. Total cost, $1,000. The next thing was housing, and this is where it starts to stack up, so let me roll through it. We spent the first 2 months in an Airbnb, and that cost us $6,000. Now look, I think that is the best investment we made because we got to kind of figure out the area before we committed to the place we were going to live long term. Now you may already have a place down here. You might already have a house or a condo that you purchased and you know exactly where you're going to live. More power to you. You can knock this expense off. But for those of you who are
saying, hey, I want to move down there, we're coming down on a trip or two to figure out the neighborhoods,
check them out for sure. I'd still suggest an Airbnb for a period of time, just so you can figure it out. An example, if you know you want to live in Cap Cana, cool. You've visited 2-3 times and you love that area. It's great for you and your family. Airbnb in one of the Cap Cana neighborhoods, the one that you think fits you best before you decide to go long-term, rent or buy. You're going to learn a few things. Do flights go over the area that you're in within that neighborhood? What are traffic patterns like? Are you next to a lot of undeveloped lots where you get centipedes or tarantulas or whatever and you don't want to deal with those things? I know I don't. All the little nuancy things that are out there, you'll learn by just simply spending a little bit of time with an Airbnb in a location. Then you may learn this is exactly where we want to be and we're going to to fight to find a place right in this neighborhood. Or you may find a different neighborhood in Cap Cana. Or maybe you find you don't want to be in Cap Cana at all. That was our story. We started in Cap Cana. We thought that was going to be the spot. And we learned that it was just too difficult to navigate day to day from Cap Cana with kids. So we moved to an area that we felt fit us better. Now, once we decided where we were going to live, we had to pay the rent and we had to pay a deposit. In many cases, deposits here are 2 months rent, and then you also pay the first month's rent. Our rent, 4,000 USD per month. Yeah, really. That's not as uncommon as you think. That said, you could find it for much less. We chose a neighborhood that really fit our family, and thank God we can budget for that amount. But if our rent is $4,000 a month and we have to pay 2 months rent up front for a deposit, that means $8,000 deposit, $4,000 for the rent for the first month. In total, $12,000. Next was a car. So we leased a car from my wife's brother's car lot for $6,600. We paid that all up front when we arrived here. Now, if you watch my other videos, I talked about how that was probably a big mistake for us because when we decided to stay more than a year, which was our initial intent, we ended up having to buy a car and spend more money. Had we just bought a car up front, understanding that the resale market here is really, really good, we probably could have walked away for a couple thousand, maybe even $1,000 less had we left in a year by selling the car. In other words, vehicles here maintain their value. But anyway, we add that $6,600 to our tally. All right, so we're here. Now we got to get our kids in school. We went and checked out a few. We decided on one. We paid the tuition up front. That total, $15,000. Again, without kids, you can knock that line item off and it'll save you a lot of money on this move. Then we get into some things that you may not think about. Like here's one. When we moved from Michigan, we kept our home there and we're renting it out midterm, short term, which means it's fully furnished. All of the Wi-Fi and the heat and electric are all in our name, and we charge a premium to our renters. However, our regular insurance company for the house, without having another U.S. resident, would not allow us to short-term rent our home. I had to find a specialty policy through a company called Black Opal Insurance, and that cost me $3,000 for the year. So I'm adding that $3,000 on. Yes, of course, you can offset the underlying cost of the other policy or what you haven't used, but for the sake of ease, we'll throw the $3,000 on there. It wasn't a big difference. I wasn't getting a ton back from my old policy. Once we were here, we had to get car insurance. That was $600 for the year. We shipped a big box of supplies, just things that we wanted to have down here. That total with the supplies and the shipping was $800. And to fly our 2 dogs were $200 a piece on the flight underneath the chairs in front of us. There's another $400. Once we got here, we had to spend about $500 on groceries and other things that we needed for the house. And then I'm including in this entire cost our preparation of our home to become an Airbnb midterm rental. This is buying towels, bringing in cleaners, bringing in professional photographers, all of the things we wanted to do to make our house presentable for mid or short-term renters. That total was about $2,500. Lastly, we had to buy school uniforms, $87. If you tally it all up, you come up with my total, $51,487. At least I hope you do. I'm gonna have to do that math again. But it's pretty darn close, so just trust me on that. You can check me, drop it in the comments if I got one digit wrong on that, let me know. Now, one variable that we did not have the expense of that many of you may is furniture or other items that we're shipping in bulk. This could be your car or furnishings, like I said, or something like that. We just paid a premium on the rent so that our place was fully furnished. And look, let's go through this list because some of you might be sticker shock, but it may not apply to you. Let's just give another scenario here if we go through this list. Now look, if you're a couple or somebody single or your kids are grown and out of the house, many of these expenses may not apply to you. If you're flying from Miami instead of Detroit, your flight prices might be lower. If you already own a home here, or if you have a car here, or both, then those aren't expenses you need to incur. I mean, heck, you take out school, the need for a big house for the family, or if you own your own home and don't have to pay for one once you get here, the Airbnb, I mean, that's over $30,000 right there that you can just cut out of this budget. Otherwise, for a family of 4 or 5, if you're doing the move the way we did, that's gonna be pretty close to your expense line. Now, let me address the house, because a lot of people get a little shocked on like, oh, you're spending too much. You should be living like a king, and you are living like a king. Now, I'm living fine, but like a king is a little bit extreme. I picture a king having like the giant roasted turkey legs and telling people to be killed while they run away from lions in front of you. That's not my life. The reason we're spending a bit more, and it was a calculation on this, was 1, proximity to our kids' school, 2, security, 3, walkability and access access. So we didn't have to buy a second car. We have one car in our household. We don't own a golf cart. We borrow our friends every so often, or anything else for that matter. One car, and it's a 2012 Volkswagen Jetta. So we decided to live where it's mostly walkable. And then also, I work from home. My business, my life is at home. So I needed the room, a studio setup, or I'd have to rent a place outside the home, and probably need a car to get me back and forth. So while $4,000 a month is a bit shocking, it does mitigate other expenses that we don't have as a result. We've looked around for less expensive rent in our neighborhood, and what we're finding is that we actually are getting a good deal. Many others here are paying $5,000, $6,000, I've even heard $12,000 a month in rent. USD from reputable people that I've talked to. So $4,000 a month in my particular neighborhood isn't all that crazy for a full house. It's a lot for a condo or a townhouse. For a full house, it is not that bad. And my house is about 400 or 500 square meters, which means it's between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet. So it's a lot of house. In fact, too much house. But it's what we found. We had access through a friend. And remember, we were moving here for 1 year when we planned this. So it was like, wow, we could hold out for $500 less a month, but that's $6,000 over the course of a year. We're already in what we're in. Heck with it. Let's roll. But again, it gives us a lot of ability to self-contain within the home between our business, my work, access to restaurants, access to grocery stores, and especially our kids' school. Now, there are some other expenses that you need to consider that we didn't in year one. Like, we didn't buy private health insurance, and we're glad that we did in year two. We bought membership to a gym when we got here. Things like that do add up a little bit. But if you want to learn more about the cost of health insurance and what health care is like here generally, just tap this video right here and I'll go through all of it, including how much it cost for us to have a hospital stay at a private hospital locally. Check that out. Subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this budget, and I'll see you on the next one.